Impression the game you get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Seanie Buckley. To do that to Tomás O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Carey. Carey leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it hard. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
Hello and welcome to Sport Limerick preview of Big Derry versus Limerick football promotion coming this Saturday from Carrick and Shannon. I have two special guests on tonight. In the red and white corner, we've got Mr. Michael McMullan from the County Derry Post. He's a Schlockneil man and has been involved with Derry minor football management over the years. And in the green and white corner, we've got Seanie Buckley, 13 years, I think, Seanie, a Limerick senior footballer, involved in the Limerick Underage Football Academy, but most famous for the clip that we just saw there from the Munster final of his little throw over and point against Tomás O'Shea. So listen, lads, thanks very much for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
So we'll start as you're the kind of you've come the farthest, Michael. We'll start with yourself. Derry, big ask for Limerick on Saturday. Can you give us a flavour of the league so far from the Oak Leafers?
Well, the league has been it's been exceptional for Derry so far in so many ways. Just rewind the clock back a few years. They got relegated in 2017 to Division 3 and then down to 4 and back up and nearly got promoted last year. Whereas this year they were exceptionally strong against Longford and Fermanagh with a pretty devastating counter-attacking game. Where they were pulling the other team to the very sidelines and running through the middle. Like it was great to watch. And then against Cavan, Ulster champions, and to be honest, they had the game won twice and let Cavan back into it. And I think the most pleasing thing from the Derry corner is that they dug it out. There was one spot, there was one frame in particular where Cavan had a third goal chance later on, and Gareth McKinless chased it all the way back. They did enough, but there was that wee bit of grit in that game, that was pleasing. So their league campaign has got a little bit of everything so far. But as I wrote in my preview for yesterday's paper, this is the game that matters. Everything else is irrelevant if Derry don't do the business in Carrick and Shannon, and that's just the bottom line. But so far, so good.
Yeah, those two opening games against Fermanagh and Longford, like they really laid down markers in those two games. They put up massive scores and they kept both the teams fairly quiet at the other end. But I suppose the last day I was watching a bit of the Cavan match and Rory Gallagher was quite animated afterwards on the pitch. You could see it seemed to mean a lot more to him than the other two victories. Like just as you said, it was the first real test that they'd come up against so far, but they came through with flying colours like you. So you think Limerick are kind of, that was a good test for Derry just before the Limerick match. Kind of it pointed out maybe a few things that they were maybe they'd coasted through up to that point and they were challenged a bit more against Cavan.
Yeah, well, you touched on it there, Pa, about Rory's body language. I actually noticed from the warm-up before the Cavan game, like the game meant a lot more to Cavan than Derry because they still had a chance to be in the semi-final. But Rory Gallagher was like so animated during the warm-up. And it was actually, whenever he went to Breffni, the sun was out. It was actually like a championship day. And you're right, he was so up for it. But I think there's something sort of stuck out for me when I was analysing Limerick during the week. 3 out of Limerick's 4 goals came with Danny Neville coming attacking along that narrow side, and and two of them were flicked across the goalmouth for palmed finishes at the far post. Derry conceded one like that against Cavan, so I think that'll be high up their analysis priorities this week. So I think that will flag up for Derry. That's something they're going to have to work on, and something that Limerick can cause problems with. So from a Derry point of view, hopefully we can learn from that.
Yeah, I suppose again it's unfortunate. It's a pity Derry didn't make it 3 massive wins out of 3, because it probably showed up 1 or 2 cracks in their backs or in their unit that Limerick might have exploited up to that point. But as you said, and I'm actually a clubmate of Denny, and like he has that in him the whole time. Like you in most intercounty footballers, you kind of show them the inside because they're not going to get. They're probably not going to challenge you on the line. But he'll take, if you give him an inch, he'll take that gap. Like, and himself and Hugh Burke, I suppose, have formed a good partnership up top for Limerick, and they've put up the bulk of their scores. And I've no doubt that Rory Gallagher probably in the he's so meticulous in his preparation that I'm sure he's had the two of those marked out. I'll come on to Limerick shortly in a second, but if we stick with Derry for another minute, having the Schlockney lads available from the get-go in the league is something that probably has been missing for a couple of years due to your success in All-Ireland Club Championship. Like, would you say that has been a big positive for the county panel?
Oh, it's massive. To be fair to Damien Barton and Damien McArlean, the previous 2 managers, they were probably preparing Derry with their hand behind their back, because yes, they have 6 players on the panel at the moment, but 3 of them are defenders.
Yeah,
the 2 McCaig brothers and Brendan Rodgers. What county team in Ireland would be able to survive without 3 of their back 6? You know, to be fair, and Rory has got a full pick this year. Another massive plus for Derry has been the return of Gareth McKinless. I would say a lot of people are talking about Conor Glass, but I would actually say Gareth McKinless is the biggest addition, because he has actually changed the whole way that Derry have lined out. Chrissy McCaig is now a marker again. He's now an organiser again. He doesn't have to play at number 6. And it also takes the pressure off Brendan Rodgers, because he would always make them big runs up the pitch. So he's able to do that. But you're right, the Slaughtneil contingent being back is huge. And for once, and I'm not sure how long, but for once in quite a while, Derry have got a core of their team. And the one thing that Rory Gallagher has said in probably every interview this year, every single interview, it's about committing to each other. Those are the words that he's used. It's about getting lads that are going to commit to each other. And there seems to be a bit of unity in there. And you know yourself from playing, like, it's hard to beat having a team where there's unity. So hopefully that's going to be another card that'll help Derry over the line.
Yeah, and just as you mentioned it there about Rory Gallagher and the transformation really that he's brought to Derry. Like, I suppose when he was with Fermanagh, it was probably thrown at him how defensive they were, and like, you know, they got so many bodies back, and having coming from Donegal, like there was that element of getting bodies back. Like, but would you say he's kind of showing his attacking side as much with Derry this year? I suppose it depends. Derry have the forwards, especially in Shane McGuigan, who's like, I suppose, the spear at the top of that. But would you give him a lot of credit for the way Derry have changed the last year or two, or is it just solely down to the fact that they've gotten more of their main players back in play?
I think it's a combination of it all, to be honest. The 2 key things are having the Slaughtneil boys available and having everybody sticking together. But what's pleasing me at the minute is that Rory is preaching the commitment card, you know, in a big way. And you touched on it about how he played with Fermanagh and, you know, the way Donegal played. He was under a bit of pressure when he got the Derry job. A lot of people were saying, look, he's going to play negative football with Derry. But to be fair, you have to let a man play his own cards. You know, if he did play that way with Derry, then you can throw it at him. But like anybody who's watched Derry this past few while, it's been like he's no more defensive than anybody else. You know from watching football at the moment, it's played in waves. When you have it, it's gung ho going forward, and when you don't, it's covering back. But I think he's bringing everybody with him. I think that's the big thing. that's very pleasing at the moment.
Yeah, I
The
was.
other thing I was going to say to you there, actually, he did say that he was based in Limerick in the mid-noughties, and he trained a night a week with Limerick.
Yeah, I saw that actually. It was before
was that your time, was it?
No, it was. I think it was 2006 before I would have joined up with the panel. I was late enough. I was 23 or 4 getting involved. But yeah, I did see that in an interview actually. Like, he's certainly a guy who's been around the country. Like, he's probably, and like, you know yourself, the more people that you can get in contact with. Like, he's been in Donegal, he's been with Fermanagh, he's been with Derry. He's obviously training with Limerick, so you do get it's amazing. You get a different flavour of the different ways that people play. Like, I'm sure, I don't know where he went to college. I'm sure he went to college up in the north somewhere. But like, he's vastly experienced for the age of the guy that he is.
Yeah, I think he went to college in Sligo IT. I think he made a good there. I'm not sure. Yeah. And
so like,
he won an All-Ireland club with some goals in Belfast as well.
Yeah, so even that, like, he's basically touched off the 4 corners of the country nearly, doing all that. I'll keep with you for the time being because Seanie's got some technical difficulties. I think we'll get to Limerick in a minute, but I suppose from a Derry point of view, like, to be fair, I was looking at Chrissy McCaig's interview after the other day. There's very much a focus about, and you mentioned that there's a real focus about what they're doing. They're not getting too much ahead of themselves. Like, I can say it, but Derry are the standout team in Division 3. Like, you know, what the scores they're putting up and the performances they're putting in, and they were so close to getting promoted last year. And like, I wrote a bit this week that they're everything but a Division 2 team and probably touching on Division 1. Like, it's a big game on Saturday. What kind of challenges do you think? What could Limerick throw at them, basically, that you think might cause Derry a problem?
Well, the thing that has always caused Derry problems, they've always struggled with blanket defences, and traditionally always have done so, and have never played well when they've tried to be defensive themselves. I think if you're the Limerick manager, you would be watching the Fermanagh game with the width that Derry was able to create and the runners through the middle. You know, Limerick would need to be putting Gareth McKinless on the back foot. You know, he's the main man at the moment. Obviously, Shane McGuigan it's well documented how much he's scored and how much he's improved, but it's that running game that Derry are offering through the middle. That's something that has been Derry's strengths. If Limerick are able to curb that, Derry will be, you know, they'll have to go down a different route. From watching Limerick, I know GA goes not a true reflection because you're only watching the camera, but it seems to be that it's a very patient build-up. It's keeping things tight, and then whatever Billy Lee says at half-time, there always seems to be a kick after half-time with Limerick.
Yeah.
And Derry have actually done that as well. You know. Yeah.
They have actually. I was looking at that. The third quarter. The scores that were being put up in the third quarter in particular, and it wasn't the case that the first half went particularly badly or anything like that, but the third quarter, whether it's adjustments that Rory sees and imagine see at half time, or that kind of G up that they get, but they've literally blown teams away in the third quarter.
Yeah, and in Derry's 3 first half performances, and I actually think in Rory's 3 interviews and Chrissy McCaig when I interviewed him, they were pointing to the fact that they kept the other teams in the game in the first half with missed chances. And that's the thing from a Derry point of view. The body language after beating Cavan, like Chrissy McCaig, you nearly thought they had been defeated.
Yeah.
Because the fact that they had such convincing leads, not once but twice, and couldn't kill off the game. And Cavan was a wee bit like that last year in the Ulster Championship, like the team that just refused to go away.
Yeah.
And Donegal found out to their cost. They were the last man standing, obviously. So, I think that if you're from a Derry point of view, you would worry that if Limerick could close up the middle, and I don't mean parking the bus. I just mean that leaving the middle third congested to stop that running game. It would mean Derry would have to go down another route, but that other route, Kieran McFall in particular, has been very impressive, and he he has been the go-to man for McGuigan. Like every single time he looks for McGuigan. So that's the other side they have to their game. So from a Derry point of view, we would like to hope that, like Rory kept talking about games that matter. Derry need to win games that matter. This one matters. So in the games in the mix, that's the two avenues they have, that kicking game via McFall and that running game. And it's the mental toughness to be able to switch between the two of them in the middle of a game. And that's the thing that I'm looking forward to seeing, to see can they do that. And if they do that, there's no reason why they can't go on and win the game.
Yeah, and like if Derry weren't playing Limerick on Saturday, I would have probably still, like you spoke about Jago earlier, and it's a fantastic facility to be able to see games during the league that you probably wouldn't have seen otherwise. But I would have definitely been tuning into the Derry match anyway to see the type of football that they're playing at the minute. Like, what's the kind of feeling around the county with the way things are going? Obviously, there's been like you said it, Derry were Division 1 2015, and within 4 years they were unbelievably down in Division 4. So there was probably an element of where are we going, but there must be a lot of positivity around the place the way the team is going at the minute.
There is like a drop from Division 1, and then in 2016 they stayed up in Division 2 by score difference on the last day, and then started to drop. And yourself, you see whenever results aren't going well, apathy's never that far away. And the frustrating thing in Derry was that there was a good healthy club scene, a good healthy school scene, and good competitive minor teams, yet the senior team was on its way down. But now there is definitely positivity, and people are talking about it again. And probably the fact that people are talking about it again, it probably does bring pressure on Saturday. Like, let's face it, Derry will be expected to win this game by most neutrals and most of their own people. So there is an element of expectation, but there's an element of pressure there, and that's something they're going to have to deal with. But there definitely is good signs. Like even this year's minor team is a good group. So they've got to the stage now where there's a decent conveyor belt there that is starting to come of an age. Like Derry won their first Ulster minor in 2015. Conor Glass was on it. Shane McGuigan was on it. They're both playing now. Like, Shane McGuigan's their star man. And now the teams coming after them are starting to feed into that. So it probably is a good time for Derry football at the moment. But, I think the opening line to my preview was everything depends on Saturday. And everything, and that's what it's all down to. So if Derry were able to get a result on Saturday, they would so look forward to an Ulster Championship.
Yeah.
And they haven't won a championship match since 2015. So that would be something massive to take out of Carrick and Shannon if they're able to get that result.
Yeah, look, and we all know that for kind of the arc of a team, like to be playing in Division 2 is a big one. Like, if you're going to be competing in the championship, like to be getting up to Division 2 level and playing teams very regularly, like it makes all the difference. I know from playing with Limerick when I started back in 2007, like you were playing Division 1 teams and you were straight into it, and then when it came to championship, like you were kind of set because you've been playing good standard. And just on that, this coming Saturday, like there's 24 teams this Saturday that are basically playing championship games. It's probably it's the first time in years that I can remember that there's been so many football teams on a given weekend that have so much to play for. Is there something in that, just before I move on to Limerick and Seanie, is there something in that you think, Mel, that can be looked at going forward for summers where you've got novel pairings like a Limerick and a Derry, you've got Mayo playing Clare? Like, I know the Ulster Championship is sacrosanct, but do you feel it's kind of put into a stage where it's worth looking at something during the summer, something different?
I certainly think I definitely think it should be looked at. Like you think about this Saturday, everybody's got something to play for. You see, the day Derry get relegated from Division 2, they scored a point in stoppage time that put them up. 2 minutes later, Down scored a point down in Cork. And, 2 minutes later, Jerome Johnson scored a point, and within 2 minutes, Derry went from being in Division 2 to Division 3. So much to play for, so much excitement. Teams of a power playing each other.
Yeah.
There's definitely something in it. I think probably what they should do is, and I think they should have done it this year. This was the year to do it.
Yes.
They should have played the Ulster Championship, and then played. I think they should have forgot about the league this year. I think they should have played an Ulster Championship and played a Champions League, if we're allowed to call it that, a Champions League. So everybody's a chance to play in Ulster, and everybody's got a chance to compete for Sam. And if you don't come on the top two in your group, then you either play in a B competition or you don't. But everybody's got a chance to play for Sam, and everybody's got a chance to play for the provincial championship. I definitely think it's something that needs to be looked at. And if it means that you don't have a McGrath Cup or a McKenna Cup or whatever, so be it. Even they were under 21 competitions. But I definitely think I agree with you there, and I felt quite strong. I thought this was the year to do it.
Yeah, it was really like
when you had all of last year, in fixture meetings and time to plan. I think we probably should have done something this year.
Yeah, but hopefully, we will enjoy Saturday and Sunday for what it's worth. Anyway, well, we'll see about Saturday. We'll see how that goes first. But Seanie, you're back with us. You were listening to a lot of that, I think. But we've had the Derry point of view, and in fairness to Mel, he's given a good synopsis, and we'll come back to him again in a second. But from your own point of view, and I know we tend to watch matches together and be back and forth about performances, and we're great footballers on the ditch now that we're not playing anymore. Like we're all able to make the right calls. But what has impressed you so far with Limerick football so far in the league?
Oh, I suppose it's a real breath of fresh air. And particularly the last day out, running up such a scoreline. You can see the game is all about confidence, really. And once confidence is good and lads have a belief in themselves and feel comfortable, you can almost feel it when you're watching games, And I think the group are in a good place at the minute. And the Wicklow game was vital, but I suppose if you take it back to the very start of the Tipperary game, the very first game of the league, and I'm sure it was the same for a lot of counties, it kind of dictated really where they were looking after that. And Limerick's winning the Tipperary game, kind of, no matter how the second game went, you're going into the third game with a do or die situation. So, look, obviously very positive campaign, definitely so far.
Yeah, and look, big challenge on Saturday, and we got on to Derry and what you think about that. But looking at the team, Billy Lee obviously in his fifth year at the helm. Like, where are the areas that you've kind of really seen improvements from the lads? Like, where you've saying, okay, might not be winning games, but look, that's definitely heading in the right direction. So, what are the areas that you thought are shining through there?
I think what you want to see, no matter results, is consistency, and I think that is that's a huge part. And even taking it into the championship, whether Limerick lose or win, and obviously their first game is something they'll target in championship, and moving on to if we even bring it forward to the Derry game, can the team perform? And anytime you perform, I think you can move on to the next day out and really look at it with a bit of confidence. I think something that shakes any team is a team that is up and down, and I suppose particularly towards the end of my playing days, that was a team that maybe a performance could be put together in a day, but the next day out could be shaky and could be bad, and you could be on the receiving end of a thumping. But what's pleasing now is, I suppose we're almost assured that the team will show up on a given day, and looking to the Derry game, that's something I suppose we're looking forward to and hoping it happens on the same day, really.
Yeah, and it's something. I know from Derry's point of view, Mel, is like it's kind of and Derry have set out their stall from the start that promotion is almost a must, and it's been a target. Limerick's target, Seanie, probably was just maintaining their status in Division 3 to kind of get used to that level. But with Saturday in mind now, what are the areas that you think that, I don't know, have you seen much of Derry, but what are the areas that Limerick have to hit on? What are the kind of key things that they have to get right on Saturday?
Look, going to it, I have it definitely. I hear Mel speaking about Limerick. He probably knows more about Limerick than I do about Derry, but just, I suppose, if you go to score lines alone, And on the Derry results, it's only Cavan in their last game who scored over 9 points against them. So I suppose I had them, during league games in Division 3, I think I've spoken on our groups a bit, like I think you need 17 points minimum on a Division 3 game, and you're hoping to keep the opposition below that. So the next day out, like for Limerick, obviously Derry have ran up massive scores in a couple of their games, but what you're hoping for is, no matter what, can you get up around that mark, 16, 17 points in a really tough league game? Because we haven't done it in a number of years, I'd say. Looking at the 2 league campaigns, and I suppose on paper, the northern section, it looks more difficult. If you were to put a Division 3 league together and add the 6 teams possibly, or add the 7 teams to it, you're probably looking at a more difficult league for Limerick. The way it's worked out has provided a great opportunity, and the good thing from Limerick's side of things is they've taken the opportunity and are an all-in do or die match against Derry the weekend.
Yeah, and just very last one there before we get back to Mel. I suppose an extremely important thing before they played Wicklow was that Danny Neville and Hugh Burke seemed to be doing the vast majority of the scoring. And again, it was probably on show towards the end of the Wicklow game. But how important is it when you're playing the likes of Derry and the better teams that you can look at a scoreline at 11 points and play at halftime with 8 different scores? Like, so what does that add to the Limerick Arsenal that Derry have to prepare for?
Yeah, well, it's the way it has to be. Like you need, like, funny enough, like Mal there is a Derry man, obviously, and he's now talking about Danny Neville. So I'm sure in the dressing room and when they're preparing for the Limerick game, they'll have the target on a couple of the Limerick forwards, probably doing the most of the damage. I was just looking there today in relation to who has, with the scoring, and obviously you mentioned Hugh and Danny, and between the two of them, they have 424 out of 443 scored in the league for Limerick. Like, so, again, that's something that will be looked at. You mentioned there the last day did, I think, 10 different scores against Wicklow. So you're looking for your half hours to chip in with a point or two, and you're looking for a midfielder, a wing back to do likewise, and hoping that, again, if you get your other players around the field to chip in with 8 or 9 points, and then add the lads in with maybe a goal and a few points, you're up around 114, 115 there, and that's going to be what you'll need to be competitive, I've no doubt. And in order for that kind of a scoreline to be competitive against Derry, you would have to be massively disciplined in defence and keep Derry's scoreline relatively down, which they haven't done so far. I think what's their lowest score, in 116 the last day out was their lowest score, like, so that's 19 points. So you're in around that mark.
I come back to you there, Mel. I know I was just looking at some of your pieces. Brendan Rodgers picked up an injury against Cavan. What's the word on him heading into the match, or is there anything on the ground?
Well, I was talking to Rory on Monday, and he went for a scan last Tuesday, and the word is that it's a small tear. Rory termed it as a 2 or 3 week injury, was how he said it, and I think he's more unlikely not to play than likely, which makes me think that it's a wee bit like the Michael Murphy situation in Donegal, where they're just going to have to wrap him up in cotton wool for the championship and get on with it. So that's the way it seems. Apart from that, Derry seem to be at full strength. Padre Cassidy didn't play against Cavan. The reports from Rory was that he trained all last week. So they're in a decent place selection-wise. With Brendan Rodgers going out of their defence against Cavan, and Chrissy McCaig went off with a blood sub round about the same time, it sort of threw Derry a wee bit. They had to move Gareth McKinless back into cornerback for 2 or 3 minutes, and it unsettled them. When you speak about Danny Neville, with Rodgers gone, it maybe changes things a wee bit. If Chrissy McCaig goes to Markham, I noticed Danny played a wee bit more advanced out around the middle. So if he's out of the full back line, that might be a chance where they can pull Derry out of position. So that might change how Derry do things at the back. Because I think he's got 2-7 from play, and he's he seems to be very quick on his feet, and I know that Hugh Burke's the top scorer, but a lot of it seems to come through Danny. So with Rodgers gone, I think that's Derry's biggest thing they need to be focusing on this week is that word that we always hear, matchups. So that will probably be Rory's main focus this week. The other thing I did notice was that Ian Corbett only came on at half time against Tipperary, and the game just changed right away. Maybe it was him, maybe it was a team talk, but there was so much zip to Limerick straight after half time, and I think their goal might have came a couple of minutes into the second half from Corbett's ball. So if he's playing at centre back again, that's a big plus. I noticed he played centre back in the last two games. So was he injured from the first?
Yeah, he came into the. I just speaking to Ian. He came into he had an issue with his bottom of his foot there with the hard ground. I suppose a lot of things with lads coming back having not like they've done a lot of gym work and running and things like that. But I think one of the very first nights of training, very innocuous, just landed on his foot. But like you said, it's amazing when you like. It's not even what sometimes a fella like Ian does. Just when you look around the pitch and you've got your leaders, the same way with when we were playing Seanie, with like if you had John Galvin when he was on the pitch, you felt 10 feet tall, and when he wasn't on the pitch, like even though he mightn't have been getting a ball, it just rose everyone. Like, and Seanie, I'll let you come in there on how important the presence of Ian is around that team.
Yeah, I think there was a stage in the Tipperary game, and it was Limerick kicked on the second half, but there was a stage or in the first half, and we came on in the second half, but there was a stage towards the end of the game, and whatever 2 points in it, and you're thinking to yourself, just get the ball to Ian, and he'll do the right thing, he'll mind the ball, he'll look after it, and he'll bring others into the game, and that's the kind of effect he has in when there is a stage of a game that you might want to get hold of the ball. Decision making will be key, but also he will dictate what goes on around him, and he'll tell others basically how to operate it, and his judgment in that situation would be very, very good. So leadership in any team is massive, and the team isn't the same without him in it, that's for sure.
Can I just ask you, Mel, about Shane McGuigan? Like he seems to be naturally, like both feet seems to be no bother to him. What are you feeding people in Stockneal at all that you have footballers the standard Christy McCaig and Shane McGuigan and Carl McCaig and Brendan Rodgers? Like what is it that's given these lads the ability at this level that they seem to be showing like year in, year out?
Yeah, well, a good group of players came together at the right time, and from a club point of view, Stockneal won a championship in 2004, and first ever championship, and for the next 10 years we're in the wrong side of 1 point defeats, and then 2014 came, they got the rub of the green, won a championship. And then just funny, we were just talking about it at five-a-side there with a few lads earlier. Like after you won one championship and then you won another one, and then the momentum sort of happens. And I think the belief they took out of the club scene, and they're obviously exceptional footballers. And even the McCaigs and Rodgers, the fact they play in the defence together helps Derry. But McGuigan is, like you mentioned him, being two-footed. It's quite. He used to be very left-footed, but he's worked exceptionally hard at his game in every way. I can't praise him highly enough, and it's not because he's a Stockneal man. He's just an excellent individual. Great attitude, works really hard at his game. He can kick frees under pressure. He comes back to work for the team. He makes good runs. He's just. It's very satisfying to see somebody who puts so much into their game actually getting a lot out of it, and it's his mentality as well. How many good footballers have you saw down the years who their temperament has always let them down? That's not his problem, and even like I think he's taken a lot away from Rory. I think Rory has chipped in, and he's trying to get that wee bit more out of him, and trying to develop his right side so he's not as predictable. But he has been excellent, and Niall Loughlin up beside him has took a bit of the scoring pressure off. Niall Loughlin's got 110, his name, and whereas that maybe didn't happen in the last few years. It was really the Shane show. But no, he's been exceptional, and hopefully he can keep that going because he's one serious talent.
Yeah, I suppose it's like when you're looking from down here, like the last kind of the two Bradleys were the two before him, where they were just household names, like but much more flamboyant maybe in what they did, like and it's obvious when he is just watching him today. There's nothing flashy about what he's doing, but it's so effective. Like, and you mentioned matchups, and Brian Fanning or Sean O'Dea are probably going to be tasked with trying to keep this. I won't say keep them scoreless because that's nearly impossible in the modern game, but trying to keep the score down there. So, I suppose from a Limerick point of view, Seanie, we've spoken a lot about Denny, but Hugh Burke is probably the forward that brings everyone else into the game, and he's been a massive addition once he'd rejoined the panel there last year.
Yeah, huge, and actually similar enough to what I mentioned about Ian Corbett. Hugh's kind of, I suppose, he sees the game slows down a little bit for him. He makes things happen. I often think, he should be out around the centre forward position. Making play, but he's also very, very good at finishing. He's a really cool head, and a guy you can really trust on the ball. He doesn't waste a whole lot, and his decision making is excellent. I think he'd be a great lad if I was Denny or the lads around him, Adrian Enright. I know Killian's out a little bit further, but if I was those guys, I'd be delighted to have Hugh in the team. Like he'd make the right pass at the right time.
Yeah, and he's like, he was around in 2016 was probably his first year. I remember we played Antrim above in Corrigan Park, and it was I think it was one of his first championship matches, maybe his second. But he's just the type of character who you put him into a stadium with 80,000 or 80 people, and it's the same thing for me. Like you said, he's one of these guys that it's like everything else is happening in slow motion around him. There's nothing panicked. It's very cool. It's very collected. He brings others into the game. And he'll be very important for Limerick on Saturday. Last thing there, guys. Possession, I suppose, in football is such a big thing. And if Limerick obviously need to get enough of it to win the game, but kickouts, Derry so far this year, Mel, have they been kind of mixing the short with the long? Are they going on to Connor Glass? Are they going short? Are they kind of taking what's been given in front of them and going from there? Or is there a particular method to their kickouts so far?
No, well, I would have said last year that they went short too often. This year, things have definitely changed. They're going long more often. Cavan targeted them, to be honest, and Breffney in more ways than one. They filled all the holes. Cavan's management team and supporters were and subs were roaring at the top of their voices, like it was so off-putting, and they had Derry boxed in for the first half. And to be honest, that was probably the most pleasing thing for me about the Cavan game, was that Derry struggled at midfield. And I looked at the scoreboard one time, it was 110 to 1-6, and I says to one of the guys in the press box, I says, Derry are 4 points up here and they're living off scraps around the middle. This is really pleasing. So Limerick will probably, will obviously do their homework, and they will have looked at what Cavan got out of that first half. And Limerick's a wee bit similar to Derry. It's literally been the same goalkeeper, the same back three, full back line, consistent defence, consistent around the middle. So I would assume that Limerick will try and do something similar. They'll try and close Derry down, because that's where Cavan got a lot of joy out of that first half. And you're right, possession has a lot to do with it. But Derry's goalkeeper, when you talk about relegation in Derry, that was one of the problems. The goalkeeper changed a lot. Now Owen Lynch is there. He's a former outfield player. When Derry got to the 2017 minor final, he was actually the sub goalkeeper that year, so he hadn't even broke into the team. But Maher Felt won the championship a couple of years ago, and he was the goalkeeper. So he's in there, and he's in there for the long haul. And his kickouts are varied. But I put it to Rory after the last game. I says, you're bound to be pleased winning that game with so limited possession, but what he took out of the Cavan game more than the possession was the fact they beat Cavan, Ulster champions. But and even Chrissy McKagan in his interview after the game, when I said to him that the last time Derry got promoted from Division 4, they beat Limerick down in the Gaelic grounds, and he was talking about a big, strong, physical Limerick team that gave them all they wanted. So I'm sure that points to a good physical battle around the middle on Saturday, and I'm sure that's something Limerick will be looking forward to.
Yeah, well, knowing the two lads, the Limerick will start there in Tommy Childs and Dara Tracy. Like, Tommy would rather nothing better than battle with somebody and to see who can win. Like, it's kind of a throwback to former years type midfielder. Like, put the ball up and let's see who can win it. But it's probably not telling any trade secrets, Johnny, that Limerick do favour kind of going short and trying to work it through the lines from there. Do you see maybe positives and negatives in that approach?
Yeah, like it's a tough ask for like you, Sean O'Dea, Brian Manning, Mike Donovan in the last few games were full back line. I probably don't expect that to change too much. It's a tough ask to go, man to man defending with a really good forward and be pushed all the ways and have a serious job in your hands, but then also to go bringing out ball after ball up in defence at the same time. So it is important to mix up short kickouts. I'd say medium kickouts are somewhere we need to get to. So getting in between the short one and the ball long, maybe Tommy or Dara. If we can find that, and maybe instead of playing our full back line coming back towards your keeper, can you get the ball to the half back line and get your full back line coming off your half back line then instead maybe, and it gives you faster out ball as well. So I think that's something maybe that has to be looked at. But having said that, look, the lads at the back have been a good rock, and and to play the same full back line in 3 games in a row and possibly 4 is a great sign, as you said. They're doing really well. When they give the ball to Sean, in fairness, it doesn't spill, it doesn't come back to the keeper as fast. So there is a method to it, but it is tough going to run for the 70 minutes to be taking a lot of kickouts in the full back line. It's tough going.
Yeah, and I'll just stick with you, Shani, to finish with Limerick. Saturday evening, what outside of winning the match, what would Billy, what would any of the lads kind of see as a successful trip to Carrick and Shannon, apart from winning, of course? What would you love to see on Saturday?
Yeah, I think, and I kind of spoke over at the very start, the idea that you'd be going toe to toe for 70 minutes and it would be a real do or die kind of a game, and I'd add to that then getting up on the scoreboard and putting up 16, 17 points on the scoreboard, and if you can do that and perform for the duration, then I think you come home with a lot to go into your Munster Championship after. But obviously, I suppose being greedy, there is a huge opportunity now, and the lads are 1 game away from Division 2, and opportunities like this don't come around every year. So I don't think the lads can see it as just a shot in the dark and let's throw a dart at the board and see where it goes. I think they'll have done their homework on Derry. I think it's a massive opportunity. Derry are obviously where the standard is at now as regards Division 3. I'd imagine they see themselves as a strong Division 2 side the way they're moving at the minute. So for the lads, it must be mouth-watering for the team to be waiting for Saturday evening and the opportunity to perform. And ultimately, I suppose for the wider public looking on, they won't judge Limerick now on what they did in Wicklow. They'll be judging Limerick on what they do against Derry, and I think that's massive for the players as well. If they want respect, I suppose, outside of the county, these are the kind of games that they get it in.
And Mel, Derry, of course, like promotion is such a massive thing on the agenda for them. If I was to offer you a 1 point win right now and a poor performance, would you take it? Or is a good performance going into championship or a league final something that Rory Gallagher and the team and even the supporters would be kind of expecting on Saturday?
if you give me a 1 point performance and a 1.1 and a poor performance, I'll pull your both arms off at this stage. Because to be fair, for all, as I said in the preview, everything depends on Saturday, and I mean everything. So a result is the only show in town for Derry. That brings pressure. It definitely does. There's no sidestepping that. But what I want to see from Derry on Saturday, I want to see that same intensity that there's been for the 3 games so far. For too long, Derry haven't won games that matter. I'll use a few examples here. They went to Mayo in an All-Ireland quarter-final in 2017 and nearly beat them.
Yeah.
They scored a goal against Tyrone in the Ulster Championship 2019 and had them in the ropes. Tyrone scored a goal seconds later, were beaten. Put up a decent show last year against Armagh. Okay, 3 games that mattered and they didn't win them. Saturday's game is absolutely massive. So that intensity has to arrive in Carrick and Shannon. Because see if it doesn't, they just won't win. It's as simple as that. Like Limerick are consistent. They've won 2 out of 3 games. They've a consistent team. They've scored heavily. So if Derry aren't on their game, don't expect anything. So it's good old fashioned show up on the day stuff for Derry for me, and that's what's needed, and hopefully it happens, because you can probably sense it in my voice. A win is a must. Yeah,
there's a real championship feel to it, isn't there, with the weather and the hard ground and the kind of must win on Saturday. Like it's brilliant. It's brilliant, and like from a Limerick perspective, it's brilliant to be chatting to someone from Derry about a big game that's actually means a lot, and that you still have a championship to look forward to afterwards. So that's not to downplay the chances of Limerick, but it's been far too long since we've had this sort of game where I've been able to take someone from Derry and chat to them about a football match coming up at the weekend, and look, we could stay here all day talking about it. I'll just say, Derry dark horses for Ulster. Is that too much to ask? We'll forget about the league for a minute. We'll give you that. We'll worry about that Saturday. But
I don't see any reason why not. To be honest, I'll give you a stat here. There's nothing like a good old stat. In the last 30 Ulster Championship games, Derry have played Tyrone in 8 of them, and Donegal in another 8. So 16 out of 30 has been Tyrone and Donegal. So they've got tough draws.
Yeah, they have.
But they've got there's a good chance it's going to be Donegal again. But Derry has to start winning those sort of games. So why not? Why not be dark horses for Ulster?
Yeah.
But a win in Carrick and Shannon would give you a lot more to back that up with. Whereas if you don't win in Carrick and Shannon, you're going into Ulster in the back foot. But if we win, why not? Why would they not win Ulster?
Listen, brilliant. It's been whatever 3/4 of an hour. I could stay for another 3/4 of an hour talking to you two about football, and we might do some sort of show during the year. I don't know, in the lead up to a bigger game. But and I was reading today that the games of the weekend could go to extra time and penalties. So if that's the case, you'll be pulling whatever hair is left off. But look, I appreciate you coming on, Mel, and Seanie. I'm sure I'll be texting you during the game Saturday about all the things that Billy's not doing right or wrong. And it's great, something to look forward to, lads. And thanks a million for coming on.